On me gravestone shall be written, he lies a local man who followed the Black Cats all his life, a true blue Sunderland fan. Red and white until the very end, and he would always say, get the fans to sing me song the day I gone away, 'cause I'm Sunderland till I die, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's 'cause I'm red and white man through and through. And if you cut me, yes, I bleed, 'cause I'm red and white indeed. Yes, I'm red and white man, me, through and through.
Dan Neil picks up, has a look up, has to be aware of who's around him. Now Enzo Lefebvre, which way is he going to go? Is Wilson onside?
Yes.
He is onside. Wilson Isidor!
Oh! Yes!
Wilson Isidor! Wakes up Wearside! Loose ball's picked up by Job, trying to set Enzo away. Van Ivan gets there, and he's given to Eliezer Mayenda! It's Eliezer Mayenda for Sunderland!
Scores!
Hello and welcome to Black Cats Chat, the international fans podcast for Sunderland AFC. My name is Lee Thirkell. I'm from the Bilbao Black Cats, and tonight I'm joined by my fellow Bilbao Black Cat member, Mark Beston. Mark is about 70 kilometres down the road in Vitoria-Gasteiz. Mark, buenas noches. Good evening, mate. How are you?
Oh, well, yeah. Hi to you too.
Yeah, well, listen, mate, it's been a couple of days since Friday. I think we've been delaying this podcast because we wanted to celebrate. So here we are, finally, on a Monday evening, doing the podcast review. And so, yeah, a 2-1 win. I don't think anybody expected us to get a 2-1 win after the last 5 games of the season. But it's actually nice to get a win and remember what it feels like, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the end of the season was a bit of a downer, a weird one for me. Just strange end to the season, but I think you could tell from the start, difficult start, but I think the lads were physically up for it, motivated from the start. So it looked like it was going to be a close game, but to get away with a win is fantastic. I wasn't expecting that, no.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you listened to the podcast preview I did with my workmate Tom, who was a Coventry fan last week, and he actually gave me plenty of hope when he was telling me about their weaknesses and what they're good at. And it gave me a kind of insight into how Lebris might actually play, because he mentioned that Coventry do get a lot of goals from corners and set pieces from headers. And that kind of, Dan Ballard just popped into my head at that moment. I thought that Dan Ballard would be perfect for that game, and I wouldn't be against putting him in. And what do you know? He started. And then the other thing he said was that Coventry's weaknesses are basically that they play very offensive, very on the front foot, and they do like to commit a lot of men forward. And they struggle against teams that play a low block and that hit them on the counter-attack because they've got so many players forward. So when he told me that, it popped in my head that he might play Isidor and Mayenda together. And what do you know? He did. So, listen, I'm not claiming to be like Nostradamus or anything, but you know what I mean? You do get these little things in your head. And I think, listen, it turned out to be the right decision, didn't it? It worked perfectly.
Yeah, we didn't have many chances, and I think they'd definitely had their plan from the start. I think the things of them being strong from corners, I think was also, I think they were targeting Patterson at the start of the game as well, yeah, because of what happened to him in the sort of the Luton second leg playoff. I think they were definitely after Patterson at the start. They were getting 2 or 3 close to him, and yeah, maybe trying to stick to their strengths. But I think Lampard in the past has been, he's a bit black or white and maybe not very flexible sometimes, and it did seem to play in our hands. And Mayenda's a constant threat, and we just sat deep and waited for the right moment. And maybe with Lefebvre being back in the middle, and it only took a couple of times for him to get a bit of space, and then he just did the ball behind the line, and they couldn't cope with it.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, Mark, but I think Coventry's team talk before the match actually changed when they saw our lineup. Because I was kind of surprised that Coventry didn't start faster with the atmosphere that was building up with their home fans. I thought that they didn't take advantage of that first 20 minutes. My expectation was that they're going to come at us for 20 minutes, full on. They're going to throw the kitchen sink and they're going to try and get a goal. And we have to kind of weather the storm. But I don't think there was that storm for me. It just seemed like I think as soon as Lampard saw the starting line, we saw that we've got two forwards, Isidor and Mayenda. I think that put the shit up a little, didn't it? Because I don't think he'd expected that. And I think that his team talk possibly changed to be a bit more cautious. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting two. I wouldn't say, strikers to play, even though Isidor seemed to be playing on the wing more. They were maybe a bit surprised by that very fast outlet, and as I said, with Lafay not, being a bit more central, and yeah, some of their players that played well against us in the game we lost against them, their striker, Wright, he just did nothing really. So I don't know whether he was, a bit more cautious suddenly when he saw, maybe we can't have Thomas Asante and Wright really getting forward and risking things. I might have to keep something back for those breaks that Sunderland caught them out twice in the
Yeah.
end.
No, and like Haji Wright, I was kind of surprised that he didn't get more involved because
Yeah,
against
so
us this
very
season,
quiet.
he scored 4 goals this season against us, including a hat-trick. And I thought Trey Hume dealt with him perfectly. Even Trey Hume was like going up to him, like we're grabbing his shirt and everything, and getting a bit of a rough and tumble with him. So I thought Trey Hume was excellent. Um, but those first 20 minutes then, Mark, I mean, there were a couple of like nervy moments, as you mentioned before. They were targeting Patterson. Patterson had a couple of scary moments where he came out and tried to claim a ball and got nowhere near it. But I think I was just really surprised by Coventry's intensity. I thought it wasn't there. And Rob Mason mentioned in a podcast with me recently, he said that I can usually tell after 5 or 10 minutes if the lads are at it and we're going to get a good result. And I thought after 5, 10 minutes, I thought we're going to get a result here because I thought that Coventry weren't up to much. They didn't have that intensity and they didn't bounce any energy off the crowd. So the first half then there wasn't much happening in terms of chances. I mean, Mayenda had a chance where he had a counter attack. I mean, that was the early sign. He had a shot that went wide. Again, I think he could have passed it Wilson maybe earlier and like set Wilson away, but he didn't. But I was kind of satisfied going in half time 0-0. I didn't feel any kind of worry, any kind of concern. I thought we looked calm. They didn't really have any great chances, did they not really?
No, apart from the first, they had 2 or 3 corners at the start. They didn't really have anything apart from that. There were some good blocks and diving in blocks from Ballard and others and Hume. And I was a bit worried about Sirkin with the yellow card so early. If I was Coventry City's coach, I would have been sending the ball out to that side a lot more because it was a yellow card, Sirkin, and a bad time to get it so early. So again, that's another thing they could have exploited more in the first half. And I think just ran out of ideas a bit in the end. And yeah, the first half you felt comfortable, and if you'd have taken away a 0-0, or you could have even at half-time fancied what happened in the end, a 1-0. It didn't look like they were going to do much half an hour onwards.
Yeah. No, and you mentioned there Sirkin and that yellow card, and that kind of did cross my mind that they've got that Sakamoto guy, he's a very tricky winger. And you're right, like I'm surprised that they didn't exploit that more and get out but yeah, I don't know. I just think Lampard's team talk and tactics and team plan just went out of the window because when he saw our lineup, and I think he just shit himself. But it was obvious that our plan, Mark, has been for a long time now, playing a deep block and trying to catch teams on the counter. Now, in the last 5 games, it didn't work of the league season because we played crap, basically. Do you think it worked better because we had Wilson and Mayenda up top? Do you think that's what we needed in all along to have two forwards to play this kind of system?
Necessarily, I think Isidor was, he was in the first half. It was a lot more Mayenda who was a threat, yeah? And I think in especially games like semi-finals that aren't league games, the atmosphere is more tense and it can depend on 1 or 2 moments. Yeah, so if you've got a lad that Isidor that can be a bit missing for a while, but he has that quality to receive as soon as Lafay gave Isidor that ball and he had that space, I knew he was going to score because he's got the quality to have in that moment. And if you give him, 5 meters space on a diagonal towards a goal on his best foot, he will do it. So, yeah, maybe it is the case that that his game plan has been to soak up pressure. And, in games at home, end of the season, when you don't really need to soak up pressure, it might not be the right thing to do. But, on an away game and a big semi-final, when you want to come away from a result, that's, I think a more intelligent way to play, which, again, referencing the Luton semi-final loss away, I think it was more intelligent that Sunderland, the setup they did this time. Whether they do that the same at home, I don't know. I don't know. I think the key thing again was against Coventry. I think all the experienced players came in as well.
Yeah. Well, it was half time 0-0 then, Mark, and at half time I put a post on X, and I basically put Dan Ballard is a brick wall. Because I thought he was absolutely outstanding in that first half. Every ball that came into the box, he just won absolutely everything. He was throwing himself at everything. Blocks, headers, absolutely everything. So there was a bit of a worry that he was coming into the team and he hasn't played much football recently, but he looked like he'd never been away, did he?
I think he's a very good player, and he's the type of player, unfortunately, with his interruptions through injuries, that he will literally just switch on from the first minute, be intense, and do absolutely anything. He's a bit more proactive than, even though Mepham's had an amazing season, Ballard will go in and have a, throw his body in the way and do things more proactively than Mepham, who's amazing, but I think he was brilliant. It was really good in the whole game.
Yeah, it is a bit harsh on Mepham because he has been great for us this season. I mean, he is a Premier League loan player and he's worth 10 million quid. Do you think it was the right choice to drop Mepham and not 09?
I've had this conversation on this podcast a lot, and I've often think the best partnership would be Mepham and Ballard, but I think at the minute in an intense game, I think 09, he was really good again yesterday. He sort of, like you say, can wind them up a bit and unconcentrate them a bit, frustrate them a bit. He's good at the mind game, so to have that combination of a really tough player and a 9 who's, he's the leader of the side again, the captain, I think is the right decision, even though it was very harsh on Mepham.
Yeah.
And I often think 9 should move more into midfield, but I think I was wrong saying that, to be honest. I think that partnership of Ballard and 9 is the one. If something happens in the next 24 hours, I'd obviously be very happy with putting Mepham back in.
Yeah. I think 09 now, I think his midfield days are probably well and truly over, aren't they? I mean, he's definitely a centre back now. And I think the way he reads the game as well, I think I would say his concentration levels and the way he reads the game is
matured, yeah.
It is perhaps better than a Mepham or a Ballard. I think perhaps his positional awareness is good as well.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think he'll go with the same 2 then? Do you think he'll go with a back 4 and Ballard and 09 will keep their places?
I think in the next game he'll keep the same 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's also a difference yesterday is to have such a strong bench. In terms of the last 5 games have been horrendous, but to see that bench and the ones that came on, quality players, experience. Mepham and Brown, real experience the last sort of 5-10 minutes. Not the same as bringing on an extra defender and that extra defender being Selt or Eliezer. That's not the same. If you've got those 2 real experience to put in defence or midfielder and bring on Reg that will give more energy, I think so I think he will keep the same lineup and maintain that strong bench if anything happens.
Yeah, no, and the other person that you mentioned there that got missed out was Chris Rigg. Now, obviously, Lebris in the pre-match press conference said that there will be players disappointed because they're not playing. So that kind of gives you an indication that there were going to be some big decisions, and obviously Mepham was one, and Chris Rigg was the other one. Now, Chris Rigg's a great talent, but he's played a hell of a lot of football this season. And I think that he's really feeling it at the minute. And I think that starting a match, especially in the semi-final away from home, with so much at stake at 17-year-old, I think it was totally the correct decision to take him out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he, if you get to the final, I'd definitely do the same in the semi-final, second leg. And I'd be tempted to do in the final if we get through as well, because he's had a long season and he needs to get back to that bit where he can just come on with freedom, not have to worry about result, and use his skill when opposition players are more tired. When your outlets like Mayenda and Isidor are more tired, you might take one of them off, but you've still got a rig there. So I think he can go back to that surprise element that happens right at the start in FA Cup games when he was just coming off the bench. Get him back like that for the time being.
Yeah. Well, the second half started then, Mark, and yeah, it was quite comfortable as well. Nothing really changed. I mean, Coventry had obviously the majority of the possession, but they weren't really doing anything with it. We didn't really look threatened. But then on 67, 68 minutes, Dan Neil picks up a loose ball in the box, dribbles it forward, and knocks a ball in front of him to Enzo Lefebvre. And guess what? He's in the middle of the pitch, Mark. Can you believe it? He's not on the left wing. And that's where we want to see him, because that pass he played through for Isidor, we've been crying out for something like that for yonks, really, haven't we?
Oh yeah, I've been a Lefebvre fan from the first 5 minutes I've seen him, and I think it's again going back to just space. Yeah, I don't mind if he drifts left or right, but it's good that he starts in the middle so that he can be more connected to Dan Neil, that can give a good ball. And he gave the ball, as you said, in front of him, and with the quality he had, he measured it to perfection to again put it in front of the striker. Not being on the wing and having a fullback against you.
Yeah.
So yeah, for him to be in the middle and play that pass was brilliant. And a lot of the second goal was down to him as well, because he read the time to pressure the other player. But the first goal was brilliant defending, and then right ball out from Neil, right position for Lefebvre to get some strength on his pass in between the defenders and behind.
Well, no, it was beautiful. The way he just split two defenders, and then going back to the goal and my friend Tom's comments about like committing too many men forward, you could see that they were sixes and sevens, weren't they? Their defense, like they had four people back, but like there was no shape. They had like basically a triangle of three in the middle and one on the right, and Isidor was just like in tons of space. And obviously, we know that Isidor likes to come in from the left. He's got his social media profile as Thierry Henry, and that was like a typical Thierry Henry-esque finish, wasn't it? Basically coming in from the left. And what I liked about the finish, Mark, is that he didn't look at the keeper. When he picked up the ball, he had one look up, and then he put his head down, and there was like a space of a few seconds where he didn't even look at the keeper. He just walloped it into the bottom corner. And I thought,
yeah, like you say, it's probably his favourite move that he's been practicing all his career, and inspired by other people that he might like Thierry Henry. And again, because he had so much space, he literally positioned himself to receive that ball well. And yeah, he does that shot automatically. He makes it bounce before the keeper, and it was just technical skill that he's got. And they let him do it. They let him do it because they were attacking for the corner. They were out of shape. And whichever Coventry player was meant to be supervising him pushed up, and it didn't work. It didn't work. They're playing a very dangerous offside with two. He wasn't offside because he had the space and time to look at the line, and he got it perfectly.
yeah, I mean, were you surprised that he had that much space and time in the 68th minute of a home leg of a semi-final?
Yeah, I think they, in a poker game, that sort of metaphor, they showed the hands and they just went for it, and they left themselves wide open. And we pulled their bluff and, robbed the ball at the back and just knew exactly what to do. And yeah, it was surprising.
Yeah, and we saw Regis's reaction on the bench. He was getting a bit emotional, wasn't he? Like with his fist pumps and all that, and he's like grimaces on his face. Some fans are saying, where did that come from? Because we haven't seen that very often from Regis, but I think he's certainly feeling it now, isn't he? He's certainly feeling the emotion of it, isn't he?
I think that's just a release, I mean, whether you like the way he does things or not, he's been consistent through the season. So he has, stayed calm, and I think that's just a release of tension. And again, probably happy that a game plan of him and his coach and team has worked. Yeah, and it's what I would have said if we'd have had bad news on this podcast. Even I that was defending him quite a lot. If they had had a bad performance in this first leg, I think there would have been a lot of negativity and questions. I mean, it's high pressure on him because of what's happened in the short term. And yeah, he just released his tension, I think.
Yeah,
But he'll be calm again. Then he was calm again.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Well then, Mark, you know what they say, you're most vulnerable when you just scored a goal. And that's what happened to us, isn't it? Because what, a minute later, 90 seconds later, there's a bit of pinball in the box, and then the ball goes out wide. I think it's to the right back, isn't it? Van Eyck.
Yeah.
He gets past Lefebvre very easily, doesn't he? Lefebvre's got to do better there, hasn't he? He's got to kind of like either show him down the wing even more, but close him down, get close to him. You give him a really easy ball. And as my mate Tom said, when you've got like someone like Jack Radoni who scored 9 goals, I think, this season, and the majority of them are headers or coming into the box from late, you can't give that kind of opportunity to them, can you not? Because they'll take it.
No, yeah, it was that was switched off really after the game, and Lefay would have been told off for that, and he was slow to react, and it was a good ball, and like you say, the ball went in perfectly, and if you've got lots of several strong headers, he just got to the ball, and it wasn't hard for him to score because it was just so easy to get the ball in the box.
Yeah, and it was point blank range. I mean, Anthony Patterson really had no chance.
No,
I mean, if he'd have saved Anthony Patterson, he would have known nothing about it because it
no,
was
it
at
was just
point blank
yeah,
range, and it was a very powerful header and a good header.
yeah.
And well, I mean that basically got the crowd going as well, didn't it? Got the atmosphere right up. And even when Coventry scored, I still wasn't concerned. I didn't think, shit, here we go, like we might crumble now, because I don't think Coventry really capitalized on that. So I think they were still very cautious. And then I think obviously we made a couple of subs, didn't we? By then we took a Isidor came off on the 77th minute for Chris Rigg. So I think obviously Regis at this time, I think he was like playing for a draw. Uh, then on 86 minutes, he took off Patrick Robertson. He brought on Chris Mepham, so even more defensive. Uh, but like what, 2 minutes later, as you mentioned before, ball breaks out on the left. The Enzo Lefebvre puts pressure on Van Eyck, doesn't have it under control. Again, Coventry have committed a lot of players forward, and there is that kind of hesitation because Lefebvre's pressing them. Mayenda's in close premise. No, he's very close proximity. I mean, the defender doesn't even look at where he's passing. He plays a blind pass, and I think it's fantastic from Mayenda that he gambled.
Yeah, he put
Because,
himself deliberately in an offside position to just cut the ball out.
yeah, I think like, and that's what we haven't seen a lot of. Like our players sometimes they don't gamble in this situation. They would kind of like be more reserved and save energy. But Mayenda took a gamble because he anticipated the pass. And listen, when he's 1-on-1. What do you think was going through his head when he was 1-on-1, 88th minute, playoff first leg, 1-1, away from home? After everything that he's been through this season, no, the highs of Sheffield Wednesday, 2 goals at the start of the season, missing chances against Blackburn and Stoke, 1-on-1s. What would you say is going through his head at that minute when he's 1-on-1 with the keeper?
I think like a lot of cocky strikers, he's a confidence player, and I think it would have been a big boost to him before the game that he was, the youngest player in the team to be picked. He probably got a bit an ego boost that, Riggs on the bench, Shaz is on the bench. So I think he was just full of confidence before the game, and he just thought, sod it, this. I'm looking at Lefay's pressuring. If that Coventry player touches it, or he's either going to turn back and attack again, or he might try a back pass. I'm just going to put myself in the line to his keeper, and he took it. His strength is the goal he did. Yeah, 1-on-1 situation with speed. He did a little trick to the Coventry City goalie, and some goalies can fall for that, some can't. And he is good enough striker to not, wildly hook his left foot at it. He just kept it calm and rolled it into the net, and it was just another brilliant finish. And the lad is, he's had quiet moments over the season. He's had injury moments over the season, but he is a constant threat. He is a threat, and he just executed it. Like, he put videos on social media after his compilations of all his goals, and that they're all similar. I mean, if he gets going, there's no stopping him.
Yeah, yeah, and his finishing has improved. And the thing is that he still had a lot of work to do, didn't he? When as soon as he picked up the ball, because he's got a drive towards goal, what 20 yards or so, 30 yards, and he's got the keeper rushing out. And I think, like as you mentioned, he does like a little shimmy, doesn't he, to the left?
Yeah.
And this puts the goalkeeper off because the goalkeeper knows that he cannot touch him. He cannot commit to slide in because if he slides in, he's risking a red card. But again, I'm thinking back to those chances that he missed against Blackburn and Stoke, where he was 1-on-1, and the Blackburn one especially, he was in a similar situation where he didn't do a shimmy; he just basically ran into the keeper. And I think he must have been practicing that type of move since then to know that if I'm 1-on-1 with the keeper, this is what I'm going to do. So I thought it was really, really good composure from him, and the celebration from him was just as well, just as equally as classy and composed, like just so relaxed. So yeah, and listen, Coventry might feel hard done by because they had 74% possession, we had 26. Lampard was a bit whingy, wasn't he? Because he was like saying, "Well, Sunderland kit didn't come to play, but we had a plan." And listen, in the last 5 league games, I would hate to see us have that little possession, 24%, because I think the players that we have, we're better than that. We've got players that can control a game, that can dictate a game. Lefebvre, Job, Rigg, Neil, Roberts. We've got players that can really hurt teams and keep the ball. But in these playoff games, I honestly couldn't give a shit how we win. As long as we win, because that's the most important thing. But in the league games, I wouldn't like to see us play like that. So, I mean, if you listen to the match, after the match, Mark, I don't know if you heard, Julio Arca was having a bit of a dig as well. Because he wasn't impressed with the performance, even though we won. Now, I can understand where he's coming from, but I think, like I said, like in these matches, it's not really important how you play. I think it's just the result. But Arca says on social media, fantastic result for Sunderland tonight. But let's be honest, another bad performance in my opinion. No patterns of play. Possession was bad. The team gave the ball away all the time and could not keep the ball longer than 5 seconds. Set piece is not great either. Now, you can't really argue against that because it is quite true. But at the end of the day, I think the plan, that was the plan, wasn't it? Basically, to get the ball to Mayenda and Isidor forward, and in the end it worked. So, can you understand where Julio's coming from?
Some of the things, patterns of play. I think, you can't have it both ways. Yeah, you can't say, sort of some national media that you listen to as well. No one talks about Sunderland because, Coventry were in such good form. They were the team on form. Sunderland had lost 5 games. So, everything was going to be Coventry. So I think it was perfectly natural for Sunderland to start solid because if you're coming up against a team that's a complete opposite in form to you, you can't risk possession. Yeah, so you try and make a back solid possession. And I think it was unfair to call the game boring. Yeah, parts of the game I don't think were boring either because they were attacking as they were always going to do, and the goals were fantastic. Maybe there was only 2 or 3 minutes of attacking play from Sunderland, but did we really expect more? No, yeah. I don't think so. I think it was all, and I didn't find Sunderland boring. Some things didn't come off, but I like watching a good centre half performance. I like, like you're saying, Hume putting his body in. I like seeing that. I like seeing Patterson, having redemption for all he suffered in Luton. I loved seeing Patterson, 2 or 3 dodgy moments. His 4th and 5th catch and being confident, brilliant to see, great to see. Everything's about circumstances. It's cup football now. Like you say, I don't care anymore how they get up. And boring attacking play, predictable attacking play by Sunderland the other day, maybe, but I don't think it'll be the same tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And if we, they could do the opposite to us. So I don't think we can go all gun ho with 48,000 people be cheering us on. And I remember the last time we played Sheffield United in the playoff was in 1998. I was there. It was my dad and mum, and the atmosphere was nuts. And the game was, one fantastic team, fantastic. But yeah, sometimes the away game you just have to play to a plan and appreciate other things. So,
yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Julio went on to say then the positives that he liked the 4-4-2 formation. Great to see 2 strikers again up front. Defensively, I think the team are well prepared. Players that did well for him were Dan Ballard and Eliezer Mayenda. Let's hope we see a better performance on Tuesday, but a fantastic win. So Julio wasn't really impressed with the performance, but like I said, I couldn't give a shit about the performance in the playoffs. As long as you see the lads trying, and I think, listen, like I said, after the first 5-10 minutes, you can get an idea if there's going to be a good match from the lads. I think in the last 5 league games that we played, very few signs, apart from maybe the Bristol City game. But obviously we had the Trey Hume red card. Gus Poyet has also been speaking, Mark. Gus, he loves Sunderland, doesn't he? But Gus has been saying that he thinks that we should err on the side of caution because Coventry's a very good team and we shouldn't get overconfident. He was kind of concerned about the bad run, but he said that in the end, everything clicked and we've done well in the first leg. He said what advice he would give to the players: don't change anything. Do what you do best. Play how you play. But be careful because Coventry is a very good team and we have to play the game properly. So yeah, he also says that he was impressed by the level of maturity. It was tough, but they stayed connected and grounded it out. Great. He said that the team spirit is really strong. He said he was surprised early in the season to see this behaviour because they want to defend their box. But he says they stick together all the time, even when it's tough. So, yeah, I think that is one of our strengths, isn't it? That the players are very spirited, even though they might not be playing great, but they never give up, which is what we want to see as a Sunderland fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I was saying before about the bench. I mean, I think the starting 11, there's people that are really embedded in the Sunderland spirit these days. I mean, Hume's obviously an amazing leader. Sirkin's been there for a while. That they are embedded in the team. Anine, Roberts, and Neil. You've got a good pack of 6 or 7, 8 players there that will, put themselves in the line for each other, and I think that's important. That wasn't there before, and it's maturing nicely.
Mm. Well, Regis has been talking to the press today. He's done his pre-match presser, and he says that he will send his Sunderland team out to win tomorrow night, and that going out to protect their narrow lead would be a major mistake. Again, do you think that's mind games, or do you think he's being truthful?
I think he will. If you're at home, I think Coventry will not come out of the blocks. So, you might expect for the first, 10, 15 minutes for Sunderland to be putting them under pressure so that they can make it into a 2-goal distance. Because if you have a 2-goal distance, you have space for any errors or fluky goals or whatever. So that I'd expect at the start. I wouldn't be disappointed after 20 minutes to sort of settle down a bit and play a bit more. Not cautiously, you can't play cautiously at home, but more deliberately. I think we can't suddenly go into a crazy game at home. So because they are, they've done us before, so I have to be careful.
Yeah.
But they'll just get worked up by the crowd, and I expect them to attack in the first 15, 20 minutes. So mind games, partly, but not really.
Yeah. Well, he says we have to win this game. This is in my mind. We have to start like the first game. We have to have the same mindset to win. Games are unpredictable, so you have to be proactive. You cannot try to protect. We have to try and win the game. So, yeah, I agree we have to try and win the game. But, I mean, would you be happy to see us play like we did at Coventry and let Coventry have 74% possession at our ground? I don't think that would be a good thing to get the fans going. I think we've got to start on the front foot, surely, and try and blast them away or try and get a goal in the first 15, 20 minutes.
I agree with that, but that to get the crowd going in a good 15 minutes is like I said before, can be a good clearance, a good I don't want us to be attacking with 2 wingers and 2 strikers and leaving ourselves open. But yeah, you should get the players to get a few. We haven't seen a Lafay long shot, or you need to get your shots in and get your corners in. Yeah, of course you do. You have to. It's your job to get the crowd going. But at the same time, if after 35 minutes we're, worst case scenario, 1-0 down and somebody misses a tackle, then we just need to all stay calm and, realise that, up from the first leg and, anything can happen, as we saw with Mayenda. But then they do need to start well.
Yeah.
It's important to start well.
Yeah. Well, especially with the atmosphere, and like pre-match, there's going to be like fans on the street welcoming the team bus from 6:15 with like scarves, flags, and flares. So the atmosphere is going to build up nicely before we get into the stadium, and we are heading towards another Sheffield United 98 game, aren't we? Really. So anyway, Lebris insists his team will play to win and be dynamic, and he rejected any suggestions that would be linked to possession. Proactive is the main word, so he's using that word a lot. Be proactive. So he said, with the squad more or less fully available, because we heard today that Romain Mundle will be in the squad for tomorrow, but Eliezer will still be missing. He says that we know we have different options. If we are in a conservative mindset, it doesn't fit with this event. The identity of our club and our idea of how we want to play, we have to be proactive. I find that quite interesting because towards the end of the season, we were in a conservative mindset and we didn't, we weren't proactive. But I don't agree that it is about possession. If the opponent is strong, we are Sunderland with our qualities. We have a strong defensive block. We can defend, recover the ball and attack quickly. This is Sunderland. This is our identity. If we have 25% possession and win 2-0, I don't think our fans will mind. In these games, no. But I think that if it's the league games, I don't think that's the right way to play in a league game. But in a playoff game, especially with the players that we've got, like I said, Job, Rigg, Neil, Lefebvre, I think you don't get the best out of those players if you only have 25% possession. Because I think they like to have more touches. But he says, we like having the ball. We want it, of course. I won't say that we accept this level of possession, but it was how the game went. And we knew that in this dynamic, we could win the game. We want the ball, but we are not Barcelona. Of course, Reggie, yeah, I know that. But I mean, in this scenario, we knew we could unbalance our opponent. The XG was similar, and we scored twice, once after a mistake, but we provoked with a press. So, no, listen, I think that he's absolutely right. And one of our criticisms, Mark, of the recent games was how slow we were attacking. That, okay, we got the defensive block, we defended well, but we weren't getting the ball up the pitch very quickly. We were allowing teams to settle up again, to set up again in defensive shape. I think when you play two up front in Mayenda and Isidor, who are very fast, then you have a better chance of picking up a loose ball in the middle of the pitch and getting at the defenders. So the question is then, is he going to go for the same team tomorrow night? Is he going to go for that 4-4-2 system again?
I'm not sure actually. I don't know whether you might see. I don't really know. I don't know whether he'd maybe put in, a bit more mindful of the Coventry break, because they are different away from home than they're at home. They're sort of. So I wouldn't be surprised if. Sounds crazy to say, whether one at Mayenda or Isidor starts on the bench and maybe Rigg comes back on. I don't think he'll do anything like with Mepham back in and things like that. No.
Could you see Mundle coming back in?
Yeah, he would be a good option to sort of, be less risky than with Mayenda and Isidor. But to be honest, I think Isidor on the other night was playing a lot of the time out wide, yeah. So
I think they were interchanging, weren't they, a lot as well? Like the three of them, they were moving around and kind of unsettling Coventry.
Yeah. Even Roberts was a bit, Roberts was quiet, but then he hasn't had a goal in donkey's time. And again, the experience of Robert keeping that ball, you can't win with. I don't really like percentages, statistics with possession, because you can't win. Like, if you have a high percentage of possession, people say you're just doing nothing, passing sideways. And if if people are talking about, I want to see wingmen, I want to see speed going forward, well, mathematically, you're going to have less possession. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, no, it is. So Mundle is an option there to come back in. But anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But finally, Mark, I mean, it was interesting that after the match, there was no kind of like massive celebration from the players. No, like remember when we beat Middlesbrough at their place, didn't we? And
The
then
corner flag waving, yeah.
the corner flag waving, and this came back to bite us in the ass a little bit, didn't we? Because we went on a bad run after that. And
Yeah.
and if you listen to Lebris today, he said that the players were very grounded. It was part of the plan. Go to the fans, afford the fans, and nothing else. So I thought that was kind of very sensible. But even still, Coventry fans are still saying that we're very overconfident and cocky. I'm not overconfident and cocky. I think there's still a difficult game to go, and I don't think nothing is done and dusted yet. So
I just think there's so little time in between the two games as well. So, they mustn't give the impression that they think it's won and they're going home and celebrating. And now it's a two-legged game, and if they win and the distance to the final, there'll be wild celebrations, fans and players, and in the change room they'll be on the beers and don't need to worry about that if they win.
yeah. Well, Mark, we'll leave it there, mate, because Sheffield United and Bristol City has just kicked off. So we'll go and watch that and see who's going to be in the final. And then, I mean, it's 0-0, Sheffield United 3-0 in aggregate. I don't think there's any hope for Bristol City unless Sheffield United get a red card. But anyway, we'll see about it, and we'll watch tomorrow closely and passionately, and we'll be shouting and we'll be kicking every ball and screaming at every decision, etc. Mark, thanks for your time, mate, and see you next time. How are the lads?
Yeah, how are the lads? Come on, let's get it done.
Let's get it done. Exactly. Cheers. Ta.